Hey guys, welcome to Shiley's Academy. I teach few different techniques such as bold brows microblading, powder brows, Phi contour, which is eyeliner and lip shading, microneedling, and Phi bright. I offer live and online trainings for all of these techniques. I have provided a few different video series about all of my trainings. In my next few videos, you will be able to learn more about microblading and bold brows technique. What is microblading? Microblading is a form of tattoo which uses manual technique instead of machine. And the result lasts up to usually 1 year and depends on each individual. Microblading is not permanent, but it never fades 100%. Usually colors fade 40 to 60% after 1 year, and usually clients have to come back every year for the touch-up, and they will make their eyebrows refresh after 1 year. Microblading, it's known as semi-permanent makeup, as we never guarantee the result of microblading lasts forever, and customers have to come back every year for touch-up. What is bold brows microblading technique? There are several names for microblading. Bold brows is the name of the technique which was created by Phi Academy. The pattern follows the natural hair direction with the form of twisted hair strokes. Bold brows technique is suitable for those who likes to have kind of bushy and hairy eyebrows. In this video, I'm going to explain you about skin layers and different skin types as well as skin problems. A successful microblading can achieve by two different factors: a healthy skin and a proper education. First, you must know your client's skin type and understand how deep you have to go into the skin in order to get the best result of microblading. There are three different layers on the skin. First layer called epidermis, which is the outermost layer of the skin and create our skin tone. Second layer is called dermis, which contains connective tissues, hair follicles, and sweat glands. The third layer called hypodermis, which contains fat and connective tissues. The correct depth which we have to insert the pigment is between dermis and epidermis. So how do we know if we are working in the right layer of the skin? So when you're doing the strokes, if you are seeing blood spots, that means you're in a right layer of the skin. But if you see blood is running out, that means you went too deep into the skin. Inserting too deep into the skin, which means you went to the middle layer of the dermis, and that caused the pigment last up to 10 years and the color will turn to a grayish tone. Shallow works, which causes the pigment fades away completely after healing process. So keep that in mind. Epidermis is the layer without nerves and blood vessels. The strokes can draw very crispy and nice in this layer, but after regeneration of the skin, the strokes will disappear completely. So what is the correct depth or perfect work? There is no specific number of passes on each strokes. That depends on different factors such as oily, thickness of the skin, moisture of the skin, or your hand pressure. So if you're working on an older skin, that means you might need 2 or 3 passes. But if you're working on oily skin, you might need up to 10 passes. So it all depends on each individual. So for filling up the strokes, you have to pay attention to the stretch of the skin and doing it properly. Otherwise, you're going to make double stroking and the strokes will look like kind of a shadow around it. So make sure when you're filling up your strokes, you use proper stretching and also go to the exact same strokes which you created at first. A skin type by Fitzpatrick scale. This scale system classifies complexion and their tolerance of sunlight. This scale focuses on potential for irritation and hyperpigmentation. So that means the lighter the skin is, the more sensitive that could be, and the darker the skin is more prone to pigmentation. So in order to know what your client's skin type is, you can ask them this question. What happened to your skin when you stay on the sun for more than 20 minutes? So there are 6 different skin types by Fitzpatrick. Number 1 is the lightest and number 6 is the darkest. So number 1, it's known by pale skin, light or red hair. They're prone to freckles and they burn very easily under the sun. Skin number 2, or fair skin, characterized by light hairs, blue eyes, and their skin barely tan, but they actually burn under the sun. Skin type number 3, it's light or olive skin. They have green eyes, usually brown eyes, and dark hair. They get burned, and then after that they get tan. Skin type number 4, it's again olive skin. They have dark hairs with brown eyes, and they usually get tan easily under the sun. Skin type number 5, which is brown skin. They have brown eyes, and their skin is actually brown, and they get tan and burn easily on the sun. Skin type number 6, which is black skin. They have dark eyes, black hairs, and they get burned with the extreme exposure to the sun. So there are some skin problems that you have to make sure you're not doing microblading treatment on them. If you notice it on your clients, you have to let your clients know about the result. One of them is called psoriasis. The other one is hypopigmentations. Severe rosacea. If rosacea it's mild, you still can do it, but you're gonna have lots of bleeding during the treatment. So it's not easy to work on these kind of cases. You have to let your clients about the result, because the result doesn't last long enough. So, but we're not doing on severe rosacea. The other skin problem that you have to avoid working on them, it's called keloid skin, which means the skin gets raised on the part that it's cut. So you have to let your client that you are not able to work on these kind of cases. Herpes, it's okay, you can do it, but you have to let your client to take medications few days before the treatment. If your client is diabetes, you have to let them know about the result, because their body is usually more prone to get infected easily. You have to let them know, and you have to be very careful with treating these kind of cases. And the result, it doesn't usually last long, more than 6 months. Skin allergy is another thing that you have to make sure your clients are okay to do microblading with. So if your client tells you that she has skin allergy, you have to do the patch test. What you can do is, with the clean blade and a pigment, just do a little bit of a small scratch behind their ear, and then wait 2 days, and then after 2 days you can you can see if your client is okay to do the treatment or not. Usually, if there is any allergy, it would occur after 2 days, and you can notice like if you want to do it or not. So there are different skin types when it comes to different skin textures. I'm going to write it down on the board so you would know better. Oily skin, combination skin, dry skin, normal skin, mature skin, and extreme oily. And sensitive skin. So oily skin is not very suitable for doing bold brows or microblading. Combination skin, it's usually oily on the T-zone, and this type of skin, it's good to do microblading, but you have to recommend your clients to do some skin treatments before they do the microblading. Dry skin, it's another skin type which is good to do microblading. The result usually lasts up to 1 year. Normal skin is the best skin type to do microblading for them. So the next one is mature skin. Usually after age of 60 to 65, we call it mature skin. And the absorption of the pigment on mature skin is usually higher because cell turnover gets slower on mature skin, and the skin gets dehydrated. The cell turnover it's slow, and then the absorption of the pigment it's higher. So we have to make sure when we choose a pigment for this kind of skin, we choose the lighter tone. The next one is extremely oily. Which is not recommended to do microblading with extreme oily because the result doesn't last more than maybe few months, and they have to redone it maybe after 5 months. The next one is sensitive skin. Sensitive skin, it's actually getting very irritated easily during the treatment. That could be because of eczema or allergies. So you have to make sure when you're working on sensitive skin, you're not irritate the skin by wiping off and stimulating it. So in this video, I'm going to explain you about eyebrow anatomy. I'm going to draw it on the board so you can see and understand it better. So if this is our eyebrow, there are 6 different points for drawing a perfect eyebrow. From point 1 to 4, it's called the head of the eyebrow. From point 1 to 2, and then 2 to 3, it's called upper line. From point 5 all the way to 6, it's called lower line. Point 2 to 3, it's called tail. And we have a transition which is between point 1 to 2. It's going to be right here, transition. For shaping the eyebrow, we use this feed divider. You can place these 2 points right on a straight line, finding point number 1 and 3, and then find number 2, which is going to be a little bit higher than the line. To find point number 5, just place this on number 3, and then you're going to have point number 5 right here. To find point number 6, which is going to be between number 2 and 3, right here, you have point number 6. And then point number 4, it's right under number 1, which is the thickness of the eyebrow. So now you can connect them together. From point 1 to 2, you can connect it either with a straight line or curve down. From point 2 to 3, you can connect it with a curved line. From point 4 to 5, as you can see, point 5, it's right on the line. So you can just bring it down with 1 point or 2 point lower, just to get the same thickness from point 1 to 4, 4.5. So connect 4 to 5 with a curve down kind of line. And then from 5 to 6, curve up the other way. From 1 to 4, you can connect it with a very little line. So now you have the eyebrow shaped perfectly. On each eyebrow, there is a section that it's called transition. So what is transition? That means the hair direction changing from that point all the way to the end of the eyebrow. So when we are drawing the strokes from point 4 to 1 on the head of the eyebrow, when we get into the transition, the hair direction changes, change the direction towards the end. So I'm going to draw now so you can see. These are head strokes. That includes one main stroke and one secondary strokes. So we usually draw 3 to 4 strokes for the head before we get into the transition. So now we are going to do the transition strokes. There is 3 different transition strokes. It's called T1, T2, and T3. So here is the T1. Here is the T2. And here is T3. So as you can see, the hair direction is changing from going upwards towards the end. So there are different spine lines on each eyebrow. That depends on each person's hair direction, which they have on the eyebrow. So we have a spine 3, a spine 6, upper spine, and a spine 5. In this video, I'm going to explain you about a spine number 3. The spine usually starts from the transition. So it continues all the way going to point number 3, which we are doing spine number 3 here. So when we do bottom strokes, the main stroke starts from the lower line, and the second one starts from the middle of the first one, going all the way up to the spine line. Make sure when you're drawing the strokes, the space between the bottom strokes are the same. As you can see, the direction of the strokes, it's going towards point number 3. So now we're going to the upper strokes. Upper strokes, the first one usually starts from the top part of the transition strokes, which is going to be right here. Upper strokes contains 1 main strokes and 1 mini strokes continuing. So now we completed the bottom strokes and the upper strokes. And then we have to finish it up doing the middle or spine strokes. I'm going to use different colors so you can see them better. So there are 2 different kind of spine strokes which you can decide whatever you like. You can just decide which one to do. As you can see, these strokes are not passing from the spine lines. They actually go right on the spine lines and get flattened on the spine line. So the next one goes from upper line and gets flattened on the spine line. So between these strokes, you can add mini strokes. Mini strokes goes from between the bottom strokes closer to the main one. So you can either add it here just to make the eyebrow looks more fluffy. You can add it between or behind the main strokes if you don't see enough space. You can add over here also if there is any space between. So make sure you're not passing the upper line or the bottom line when you're doing the strokes. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to do a spine number 6 strokes. So as you can see, spine line number 6 starts from closer to point 1 and going all the way ends to point number 6. So now I'm going to draw the strokes. As you can see, the space between point number 1 and transition, it's smaller. So that means you just have to put maybe 2 or 3 strokes going upward directions and then changing the directions towards the end. So those are mini strokes that we usually use it when we do bold brows. So the strokes that we draw, usually it's not completely straight up and it's not completely curved. It has a little bit of twist in between. So it's going to look like a S shape, but a very mild S. So here are strokes for the head, and we move to the transition. That's transition stroke, T1. And then you can do T3 in between. And then now we move to the bottom strokes. The first stroke never touch the spine, but the second usually starts from the middle of the first one and going all the way to the spine. And the last one goes right over the line. And we end to point number 6. So upper strokes starts from the top of the transition stroke, from top of the T3. So make sure when you're drawing the upper strokes, the space between the first one, they continue the same. So now I'm going to do spine strokes. Using different colors. So you can add the strokes between the main ones, just to fill up the strokes. And then continue from the upper strokes. So make sure the last stroke on the upper, it gets more flat on the spine line. The last stroke shouldn't cut the lower line. It should be flattened right on the line. And you can add more strokes in between. If you see, it's empty. So when you're drawing the upper strokes, they should look like more flat. The second one touch the first one, but they shouldn't look like a branch. So if you're doing it like this, it's not right. They should look like kind of more flat on the spine. This is right, this is wrong. Eyebrows play a very important role in person's face. There is one important fact about eyebrows that we should know and ask ourselves. Is it the shape on demand it's important, or is it the shape that the person considers perfect? So we should know which one we are going to consider. We as an artist should consider this. We shouldn't let clients to decide what shape is good for them. They have the right to decide what kind of thickness for their eyebrow is better for them, but they cannot tell you which shape you have to draw on them. Clients always like to have, the shape that they always had, because it gives them more security. But you should actually draw the perfect shape according to each face different. So there are 3 different factors that affect the microblading results and color retention: internal factors, external factors, and human factors. So internal factors such as hormonal imbalance, thyroid, kidney, and liver dysfunction that causes oiliness, dryness, or flaky skin. External factors such as all cosmetic treatments, or if client is a heavy smoker or drinking alcohol in daily basis, it all affect the result of the treatment. Human factors, it would be us as an artist. So if we're not doing our job right, then it would affect the result definitely. So hand pressure, proper stretching, and all of these, it would affect the result. So we're going to use the divider to find the perfect and symmetrical shape. So you have to find the bridge nose, would be here. Place these two right over the corner of the eyes, which is here. And now you place the middle part right on this line. Then you're going to have point number 1. To find point number 3, you can place the divider on the corner of the nose, corner of the eyes, which is going to be right here. It's right over here. To find point number 2, you place this right on point 1, and then the next one right on point 3. So the distance between these two, it's going to be right here. You find point number 5, and then you place this right on point number 1. You're going to have point number 2. And number 6, it's going to be between 2 and 3. So now we have point 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 4. It's going to be right under the part that hair grows. So it's right over here. That's the thickness of the eyebrow. So now you can connect all the points together. Connecting point number 1 to 2. To 3, and then 4 to 1 would be slightly going out. And then to find the other eyebrow shape, you can use the same distance between 1 and 3, and then move it to the next eyebrow. One and 3. And then for 2, from here, that would be point 2, and point 5 is right over here. So now you have to use your Phi app to find out the symmetry. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to do a spine number 5 on eyebrow. Usually spine number 5, hair directions changing from the very beginning of the eyebrow. It goes all the way, passes a little bit up from 0.5, and before 0.6 it would stop. So I'm going to do the strokes. You can do a few mini strokes at the head of the eyebrow. So as you can see, the transition starts from the very beginning of the head of the eyebrow. It would end somewhere between 0.5 to 6. So now you can continue doing the spine strokes just to connect them with each other. So make sure the next stroke that you're applying is shorter and it's not in the same distance from the next one. So I'm going to continue with different colors so you can see. As you get closer to the end, the strokes get smaller and shorter. And the last strokes shouldn't pass the lower line. So it would be something like that. So there are different ways to draw right and wrong strokes. So when you're drawing the primary strokes, you have to make sure the secondary and the mini strokes are in the same direction, so you won't get that kind of look. So here is the primary one. The secondary stroke has to start from the middle, going all the way, connect, and then pass. The mini strokes has to start from a little bit lower than the primary ones, going parallel to the primary. So this is the way that you can draw the strokes. But if you're doing it this way, if you're making kind of, a little angle here, which is not correct, or if you're doing it too shorter than the primary, it's not right. There are different way of doing the head strokes. You can choose which one you want. So this is all depends on what kind of hair direction naturally your client has. So you can draw a few mini strokes on the head